On your blue paper, we have the prayer for today. And I need to thank Jesse for picking that out for us. It's from crosswalk.com. And it's a longer prayer, so if you would like to just allow yourself to soak it in and use it as part of the meditation, that would be great. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Oh, thank you.
That'll work.
Great, thank you. Better, huh? So our prayer for today. Dear God, I don't want to go another day without you in my life, controlling every part of my heart. I offer you my body. I dedicate myself to you. In light of all you've done for me, I give myself as a living sacrifice to you, as a spiritual act of worship. I humbly admit that I need help. I want you to help renew my mind. Help me to think the way you would want me to think. Please forgive me for my pride. I don't want to think more highly of myself than I should. My faith needs to grow, and I need your help to set goals that can be measured so I can manage them. Forgive me for trying to change on my own. I want to fill my life with love. I want to fill my life with you. Help me to get support from those around me. Help me to take delight in honoring other people, to focus on giving my life away so that you can take care of my needs. I want to nurture my enthusiasm by being in you. Help me to be joyful in hope, patient, and faithful in prayer. I give myself to you, always, and amen. This whole month is enthusiasm for the theme of unity. And last week, told you we were breaking it apart into different categories. And this week, the categories of enthusiasm are compassion and collaboration. And how does that fit into our enthusiasm with spirit? And then last week I also told you that this enthusiasm, when you look it up, actually means being infused with the Holy Spirit. I mean, the dictionary says the Holy Spirit is with you for enthusiasm, which for me I just found extraordinary. That there's this universal acceptance that you can be aligned with something greater than yourself. And then that's what causes you that enthusiasm. And then last night we watched a movie here on the 12 Powers, which for the people in the movie, at least 3 of them related enthusiasm to the word zeal, which for me was also extraordinary to think about it being, just extra. What are you really, really passionate about? But to be passionate about those things, you need compassion. Because you don't want to be so enthusiastic that you're forgetting other people's enthusiasm and how they express that. You don't want to have your enthusiasm be the only type of enthusiasm out there. There's so much more. This book, and somebody in here asked me for it, so you have to come to me afterward because you can have it. Read. But this book is by Greg Braden, and it's actually called The Science of Compassion, which I believe, if you've listened to Greg Braden at all, he really, really lives that on his day-to-day life. His enthusiasm for what he does and how he describes how spirit works in his life and how he understands that to other people is filled with a great amount of compassion for other cultures and the way other people live their life, and even compassion for ourselves, and how do we relate to our own selves with that. There's a quote in this book by Greg Braden, and it says, if we are linked to our home planet, if we are linked here and now, and our home is linked to another single source, so if we are linked to Earth, and earth is linked to the grander universe of spirit. And he calls it the grander song, okay, in quotation marks, the grander song. Then we are all truly one with all that we know in this world and beyond. And that, to know that and to live that, is compassion for everything. And to know that and be aligned with that, you can be so enthused with that you want to bring that to everybody else. You want to collaborate. So that's the compassion and collaboration. You want to bring together all pieces of that song, all pieces of this song. Another one, last weekend, I was not here because I spent the weekend with Master Robert Peng. And many of you know that he is my Qigong teacher, and I consider him one of my spiritual directors. If you have any chance to study with him in person at all, I would highly recommend it. Or at least get his book, because he's just an extraordinary human. His enthusiasm for what he does and the way that spirit runs through him and how compassionate he is with everybody is just so remarkable. And he is Qigong oriented, that's his language. And yet, we as his students, he fully knows that we are dabbling in lots of other things to supply our own curiosity for our own growth, anywhere from yoga to our own different faith-based religions to, whatever it is, sound healing, it's all across the board. Some people come with absolutely, just an openness of what's going on when they come to him. And I was in a room full of 80 people, and a good 80% of them had never been in a class with him before. So there was a great sense of just openness and what can you, what is possible for that weekend for those people. But he talks about how, because I have another friend that's also a student of his that was a little leery about going and learning some other lines of thought. For him, it was actually shamanism. So he went to Master Peng and he said, so what do you think? Would I be messing up when I'm learning from you? Or, would I be dishonoring you if I went and checked out some of these other sources and satisfied my own curiosity, that if that would match with me? And Master Peng said to him, and I'm not going to quote it exact because I got it secondhand, but it was that idea of the song that Greg Braden talks about. And Master Peng said it's like a note in the orchestra. That's all it is. It's another note in the same piece of music. And for somebody that's enlightenment for me, to let your students go explore and have compassion for anything that they could come up with, and to allow that to be part of the whole. That each thing we do, each thing we experience, that's part of the collaboration for the full orchestra, for the full symphony. And you just have, even the little triangle in the orchestra has its part. I mean, that violin might be going 500 miles an hour with all these notes, and yet if you don't hear that little triangle ding at the right time, it just doesn't feel complete. So no part is less than another. That's the collaboration. No part is less than another. And we all can work together to create enthusiasm for each other and that alignment. So that alignment doesn't have to be the same for everybody. It does not have to be the same for everybody. You can find that absolute happiness for yourself and know somebody else's viewpoint of absolute happiness might be a little different, but for them the alignment is still complete. It's that realization of absolute oneness, your absolute oneness with the universe. When you have that moment, I actually had a moment like that. I thought I've had them before, but it was extraordinary this weekend. And I never know why things like that happen. I don't know if it was because I was just very excited and enthused to be learning with Robert again. If it was the atmosphere, if I was just happened to be in that right place, I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows because when you try to recreate the conditions, it just won't work. You just have to go with it. But the only word I could come up with was the word satori for what I had experienced. I believe everybody can have those little moments at some time. And that's that word means seeing one's own true nature. I mean, how do you see your own true nature with the universe, and how does that spark you? Siddhartha Buddha had an experience sitting under the Bodhi tree that would be his satori. So if you do not know his story, he was a pretty well-to-do person. And he was very struck by, well, what happens when I get old? What happens then? What happens when I get old? What happens when you die? And it started really eating at him, like, I have all this stuff, and I got this wife, and I have these children, and I have all this palace, and I'm, but what if? And what happens? And what's all this for? And he actually the story goes, he walked away from that to find himself, to find the answer. And for him, his moment of oneness came while he meditated under a Bodhi tree. And he had his universal experience. And that universal experience translated into absolute happiness. And that doesn't mean things still don't happen around you, but it means you find that balance where you know that there's a grander lesson or meaning or experience that doesn't waver you from that happiness, that enthusiasm, that alignment. And you call that the Buddha nature, which is very different than for me. And if you read part of this book, Master Peng's along the same lines, that a Buddhist and a Buddha nature are two different things. So a Buddhist might mean that you follow different, almost like, I know it's not a religion, it's more of a train of thought, but you follow different things, different acts, different, whatever. But to have a Buddha nature, Master Peng talks about you could be a Buddha Muslim, a Buddha Christian, a Buddha Jewish person, a Buddha atheist, because the Buddha nature means you have come into alignment with yourself, whatever yourself is, and you have come to a point of happiness, of enthusiasm with spirit. So where is your Buddha nature? Where do you express that? Do you notice that for yourself? Have you had that experience? For me, that experience this weekend came when he talks about having the three treasures. And the three treasures are our humanness, the universal, or the heaven, and then the earth. Those are three that combine for the whole universe. And there is a meditation that sometime I would love to go over with you guys. It's a little long for this setting. But you sit first with the idea that you're with heaven energy, and what does that mean for you? And that kind of energy is inspiration. That kind of energy is intuition, so that you allow yourself to be infused with that. And then you allow yourself to be infused with earth energy, which is your productivity and your charisma. How do you manage yourself? And also your humanness. So empowering love with compassion and tenderness. And I find it very telling that we're infusing love when we talk about our human energy. Because aren't we here to discover what that is anyway? I mean, when you're with the heavens, it's already there. You don't need to discover it. But in this humanness and this human energy, you infuse yourself with that love, and you start to understand and experience what compassion and tenderness of that love really is. And then you take all of that, the heaven, the earth, and the human. So you take the inspiration, the intuition, your productivity, your charisma, your compassion, your ideas and experience of love, and you allow them to merge into what's called your universal chi. everything. You merge with Spirit itself at that point. And you allow them all to merge. And it's not just one or the other of those three treasures that allows you to totally merge. It's all of them together. And knowing that the three parts that we understand are actually all in one. And when you do that, wow, that's when you have that moment, all right? And sometimes, I mean, it's a regular meditation and exercise, so I'm not saying you're going to have this big ha every single time, but it's the practice that you keep allowing that for those to merge together, that you allow that compassion to come out and the enthusiasm to come out, and that you allow that everybody might be just a little different to get there. You know, maybe somebody else's inspiration when they sit with that heaven energy is totally different than your inspiration. Maybe when they sit with that, all of a sudden, you know, maybe they've written a poem. Or maybe that day they go out and they smile at the person that they're in the checkout line with, and they've not done that before, and that's their inspiration. And maybe yours is to say, you know what, Dennis, next Sunday I want to sing with you. You know, whatever that is. Whatever it is. But each note of the song, of the full instrumentation of the symphony is allowed to be different to create that whole universal vibe. And when you have that moment, though, there's no going back. There's no going back to what you truly, you know your place, you know what you truly are. And then it's how are you going to work with that? How are you going to work with that? Because you still are on this planet, you know, and to allow that enthusiasm of that moment to keep sparking back for you. I think maybe that's the challenge of the humanity, you know, because I love that Buddha story, but I don't know that, I mean, sometimes I wonder if it might not have been easier those times without all the extra electronic distractions. It's like, how do you do that now sometimes? You know, or I don't want to lessen him, but he walked away from his family to do that. How many of us feel like we are in a position that we can walk away from our family and still have that moment? So I think about that too. I'm like, that is beautiful. He found himself, he helped all these people. But in the mix of that, in the mix of that, he did leave a huge chunk of something behind. So I think we all are called to leave something behind, but what is that for us? 'Cause I know for me, it wouldn't be leaving my children behind, you know? So how does that still work into that moment I had, and to keep expressing that? I think, you know, and that's the question for each of us. How can we still bring the love to the universe and be alignment with ourselves? Let go what we need to let go of, but know that we have responsibilities as well. You know, so how does that manage for us? Where's that balance? How do we get all of that in alignment? And then that's where it all flows. That's where it all flows. I was trying to figure out some way to wrap this all up. And of course, you know, like 8:30 this morning, I get an email, and I'm on the Eckhart Tolle list. So I'm sure some of you might have got the same email if you're on the list, but it seemed totally appropriate. So I'm just going to read what came. It says, challenges are here to awaken you, even if your awakening life continuously gives you challenges. And then the awakening accelerates and deepens. So you can have your Satori moment, you're awakened, you understand, you get it on at least some level. Whatever level you're at, you got it. But life's going to continuously happen anyway. But how you deal with that keeps awakening that moment you had and deepens that moment you had if you allow it to. Now, how do you take that to allow it to work in everything? You know, and it's not easy. It's not easy. I have an 8-year-old that continually tests the boundaries of my patience. I think that's his sole purpose on this planet is to make sure I have some kind of balance in the patience realm. Because he knows, and you'll look at him and you'll be like, dude, and he'll get a little grin, and it's this crazy stuff. It's like, well, you have to put my shoes on. No, you're 8. You can put your own shoes on. It's just always, always, always. And I know he's on some kind of little path himself, but I know for me, that triggers my patience level. But when you recognize that, though, it's so much easier to deal with, so what is it that's awakening you and accelerating you? And it could be those little, cute little voices around you that just grin when they know they're pushing buttons. And sometimes our most awakening comes in, those beautiful little faces. It doesn't always have to be the really arduous, nasty stuff around us. It can be just those little everyday things. But treating yourself with compassion, though, when you're dealing with those. I know sometimes I used to beat myself up. You know how you do. You're like, enough of that. I'm done. Go to your room. And then you beat yourself up later that you didn't follow that patience line. Well, compassion with yourself. The 8-year-old will test the buttons again, push the buttons, and you'll get another chance to redirect that patience, or whatever your version of that is. Allowing compassion for yourself, allowing for all the notes to merge. Alignment with spirit is always yours. It's always there. And just like our prayer said, you're never left alone. You're never left alone. Thank you very much. God bless.